Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Veshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So today is an extremely auspicious day. Welcome everyone to Gita Jayanti celebration. Gita Jayanti is the auspicious day of the advent of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is the day on which Lord Krishna imparted the essence of Vedic knowledge to Arjuna over 5,000 years ago and enlightened him about the ultimate goal of life. Bhagavad Gita literally means the song of the Supreme Lord. It is the most widely known Vedic literature in the world. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the darkness of material existence. Every one of us is in difficulty in so many ways. Just as Arjuna was in difficulty because of having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna completely surrendered to Krishna, and consequently the Supreme Lord spoke Bhagavad Gita. The reason Krishna comes to the material world is especially to re-establish the real purpose of life when mankind in general has forgotten this purpose. Krishna is very merciful to us. It is out of his mercy that he spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. As stated in the Gita Mahatmya, Bhagavad Gita is a transcendental literature which one should read very carefully. If one properly follows the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, one can be freed from all the miseries and anxieties in this life, and one's next life will be spiritual. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 8, verse 68, Ya idam paramam guhyam mad bhakti shvabityashyati bhaktim mai param kritva mai vaishishtya samshaya. Translation of this verse: for one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end, we will come back to him. With that, we will read the entire Bhagavad Gita today. Let us all pray to Lord Krishna to shower us with his mercy and blessings. With that, we will start the recitation of the first chapter. Sevya will start the recitation now. Hare Krishna, Sevya.
Hare Krishna. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Prathamodhyayah Arjuna Vishada Yogaha Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samavetaayuyutsavaha Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya Sanjaya Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanekam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyamupasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tavasyoshena Dhimata Atra Shura Maheshvasaha Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharathaha Drishtaketuschekitanaha Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shaibyascha Narapungavaha Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantaha Uttamaujascha Viryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva eva Maharathaha Asmakam tu Vishishtaye Tani Bodhatvijottama Nayaka mama Sainyasya Sanyatham Tan Bravimite Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjayaha Ashwathama Vikarnascha Somadattestathaivancha Anye cha bhavashuraha Madarthe tyakta jivitaha Nana shastra praharnaha Sarve yuddha visharadaha Aparyaptam tadasmakam Balam bhishmabhirakshitam Paryaptam tvidametersham Balam bhimabhirakshitam Ayaneshu cha sarveshu Yatha bhagam avasthitaha भीष्ममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि तस्य सञ्जनयन् हर्षं कुरुवृद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्योच्चैः शङ्खं दध्मौ प्रतापवान् ततः शङ्खाश्च वीर्यश्च प्रणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तु मुलोऽभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदत्मतुः पाञ्चजन्यं हृषीकेशः देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दध्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मावृकोदरः अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलः सहदेवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः धृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकिश्च पराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दध्मुः पृथक् पृथक् सघोषो धार्तराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यदारयत नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव तुमुलो व्यनुनादयन् अथ व्यवस्थितान् दृष्ट्वा धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजः प्रवृत्ते शस्त्रसम्पाते धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवः ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यमिदमाह महीपते अर्जुन उवाच सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये रथं स्थापयमेच्युताम् यावदेतान् निरीक्षेऽहं योद्धुकामानवस्थितान् कैर्मया सह योद्धव्यम् अस्मिन् रणसमुद्यमे योत्स्यमानान् वीक्षेऽहं य एतेऽत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः
Thank you, Savia. Thank you, Savia. Vandya will start the recitation now.
सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्तो हृषीकेशः गुडाकेशेन भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये स्थापयित्वा रथोत्तमं भीष्मद्रोणप्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरूनिति तत्रापश्यत् स्थितान् पार्थः पितॄनथ पितामहान् आचार्यान् मातुलान् भ्रातॄन् पुत्रान् पौत्रान् सखींस्तथा श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टः विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत् अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति द्वेपथुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं स्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक्चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं ब्रह्मतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनमाहवे न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नु राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगा सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणां त्यक्त्वा धनानि च आचार्याः पितरः पुत्राः तथैव च पितामहाः मातुला श्वशुराः पौत्राः श्यालाः सम्बन्धिनस्तथा एतान् हन्तुमिच्छामि घ्नतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतोः किं नु मही कृते निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीतिः स्यात् जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैतानाततायिनः तस्मान्नार्हा वयं हन्तुं स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः स्याम माधव यद्यप्येतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकं कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवर्तितुं कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्मा सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽभिभवत्युत अधर्माभिभवात् कृष्ण प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रियषु दुष्टासु वार्ष्णेया जायते वर्णसङ्करः संकरो नरकायैव कुलघ्नानां कुलस्य च पतन्ति पितरो ह्येषां लुप्तपिण्डोदकक्रियाः दोषैरेतैः कुलघ्नानां वर्णसङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः उत्सन्नकुलधर्माणां मनुष्याणां जनार्दन नरके नियतं वासः भवतीत्यनुशुश्रुम अहो बत महत्पापं कर्तुं व्यवसिता वयं यद्राज्यसुखलोभेन हन्तुं स्वजनमुद्यताः यदि मामप्रतीकारम् अशस्त्रं शस्त्रपाणयः धार्तराष्ट्रारणे हन्युः तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत् सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये रथोपस्थ उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः.
Thank you, Vandya. Now, Shika Mataji and Pankaj Prabhu will read the English translation of Chapter 1.
Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by our intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyodhana, Virata and Drupada. There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Dhrishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashi Raja, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja and Shaipya. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are specially qualified to lead my military force. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bhurirava, who are always victorious in battle. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. All of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the flanks of army. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horn were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya, Arjuna blew the Devdatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Pondra. King Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Anant Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sughosha and Mani Pushpaka. That great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikhandi, Drishtadhyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the son of Draupadi, and others. O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of sons of Dhritarashtra. At the time Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot, bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra, drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here, who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra.
Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of armies of both parties. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, Just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on the end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune. O Krishna, killer of Kesi demon, I don't see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all these from whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-laws, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for 3 worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? O Janardana, although these men, their hearts are overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Varshini, comes unwanted progeny. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by the disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra's, weapon in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on a chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Shika Mataji and Pankaj Prabhu. Now we have Vihan reciting from chapter 2.
Mataji, we're trying to join in the other in the phone because video is not starting in our laptop. Yeah,
No issues, Mataji.
Okay.
Are you ready, Vihan?
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः साङ्ख्ययोगः। सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदम् विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैब्यमास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यम् त्यक्तोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन यशुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हावरिसूदन। गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान् न चैतद्विन्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीव क्षामः तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नं न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणां अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृद्धं राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यं सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा हृषीकेशं गुहाकेशः परन्तपः न योत्स्यैति गोविन्दं त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः तमुवाच हृषीकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्तु प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासु न गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परं देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः सांस्थितिक्षस्व भारत यं हि न व्यथयन्ते ते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते नासतो विद्यते भावः नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः तनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति अन्तवन्तैमे देहाः नित्यस्योक्ताः शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत यं हि न व्यथयन्ते ते पुरुषं पुरुषार्षभ य एनं वेति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतः नायं हन्ति न हन्यते न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यश्शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे वेदाविनाशिनं नित्यं य एनमजमव्ययं कथं च पुरुषः पार्थ कङ्घातेति हन्तिकम् वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापः न शोषयति मारुतः अच्छेद्यो यमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुः अचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि.
Thank you, Vihant. Rasmahi Mataji.
अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारताम् अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद्वदित तथैव चान्यहम् आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वापयेनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहे नित्यमवध्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याद्युद्ध्यात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं शुकिनः क्षत्रियः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम् अथ चेत्त्वम् इमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयन्ति तवेहिता कतिष्यन्ति ते व्ययां सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिः मरणादतिरुच्यते भयाद्रणादुपहृतं मंस्यन्ते त्वं महारथः येषां च त्वं बहुमतः भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्य वादांश बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं तथो दुःखतरं नु किं हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीं तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ तथो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि येषा ते भिबिता संख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि नेहा विक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाकाह्यनन्तश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनां यामिमां पुष्पितं वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादरथाः पार्थ नान्यदस्ति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः जन्म कर्म फलप्रदां क्रिया विशेष बहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रतीं भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते त्रैगुण्य विषय वेदाः निस्त्रैगुण्य भवार्जुना निर्बन्धो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षम आत्मवान् यावान् अर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानितः कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि योगस्तः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्या सिद्धो समा भूत्वा समत्वं योगमुच्यते दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणात् फलहेतवः.
Thank you, Mataji. Now Sundar Mukundadas Prabhu will recite.
Hare Krishna Mataji. बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे श्रुता दुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योग कर्म सुकौशलम कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणा जन्म बन्धा विनिर्मुक्ता पादं गच्छन्ति अनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतिरिक्तस्तरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य सुतस्य च श्रुति विप्रतिपन्ना ते यथा स्थायाति निश्चला समाधाव अचल बुद्धिस्तदा योगम् अवाप्स्यसि. अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थिताधि किं प्रभाषेत किम् आसीत व्रजेत किम्. श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजाहति यदा कामन् सर्वन् पार्थमनोगतन् आत्मनि एवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते. दुःखेश अनुद्विग्नमाना सुखेषु विगता स्पृहा वीतरागा भया क्रोधा स्थिता धीर्मुनिरुच्यते. यः सर्वत्र नाभिनिहस् तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति नाद्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽनङ्गानि सर्वसा इन्द्रियाणि इन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषयविनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिना रसावर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते यतो हे अपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चिता इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति परशभं मनः तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परा वसे हि यशेन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयोपंसा संगास्ते सुपजायते संगात् संजयते कामा कामा क्रोधो बीजयते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहा सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमा स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषाविमुक्तैस्तु विशन् इन्द्रियश्चरन् आत्मवशयैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादम् अधिगच्छति प्रसाद सर्वे दुःखानां हरि असोपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो हे आशु बुद्धिपर्यवितिष्ठते नास्तिर्बुद्धि अयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयता सन्तिर् अशान्तस्य कूटसुखम् इन्द्रियाणि हि चरातं यन्मानोऽनुविधीयते तद् अस्य हरति प्रज्ञं वायुर्नावामिमं भसि तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निग्रहाणि सर्वसा इन्द्रियाणि इन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता यः निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यं जागर्ति संयमी यस्यं जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुने अपूर्यमानम् अचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रम् अपः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामयं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे सा सन्तिम् आप्नोति न कामे विहाय कामं यः सर्वं पुंश्चरति निष्प्रः निर्ममो निरङ्कारः सा सन्तिम् अधिगच्छति एष ब्रह्मी स्थित्या पार्थ नयनं प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थितवास्यम् अन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं रक्षति.
Thank you, Prabhu. Now we will read the translations of chapter 2. We will start with Ritansh.
Sanjaya said, seeing full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Krishna, how are these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such pretty weakness of heart and arise, O Hatsir of the enemy. Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worthy gain, there are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed sons of Dharashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Now I am confused about my duty and lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition. I am asking you to tell me for this certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and this is Sao surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. If I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses, I will not be able to dispel even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Sanjaya said, having spoke thus, Arjuna, Chatsir of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. O descendant of Bharata. At that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy or grief. Those are wise laments either for the living nor the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kingdoms, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continuously passed in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person, which is not bewildered by such change. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance of disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress is steady in both, certainly eligible for liberation. Those who see the truth conclude that of the non-extinct, the material body, there is no endurance, and the eternal, the soul, there is no change. They have concluded by studying the nature of both. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. The material of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it is slain is in future, is in knowledge for the self slays not nor slain. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being. He does not come into being and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill or anyone or causes anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly expects new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, not burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble in and can be neither burnt nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immutable, and eternally the same.
Thank you, Ritansh. Now Mahi will continue.
If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms, it is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty aunt. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So, what need is there for lamentation? Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by doing so you shall never incur sin. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pratha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution and a little advancement. On this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets. Resolute good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous and of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. In the mind in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Perform your duty, equipoised Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga.
Thank you, Mahi. Now Murari will continue.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. When your intelligence has passed out to the dense forest of your delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that is being heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst and the threefold miseries of or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil, he may obtain neither praising it nor despising it. It is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagement by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. The senses are so strong in impetus, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind of even a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence no longer in such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their object is certainly of steady intelligence. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego. He alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life. After attaining which is a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Murari. Now we will start with chapter 3. Atma Maya Mataji and Akhilesh will recite the translation verses first.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 3 Karma Yoga. Arjuna Uvacha Jaya Yasi Chet Karmanaste Mada Buddhir Janartana Talkim Karmani Gore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava Vyamisrena Vakyena Buddhim Mohaya Shiva me Tad Egam Vada Nishitya Ena Sriyo Ham Akpunyam Sri Bhagavan Vaja Logesmin Divi Vidanishta Pura Prokta Mayanaka Nana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam Na Karmanam Anaramban Naishkarmayam Purushosnute Nacha Sanyashanat Eva Siddhim Samadhi Gachati Nahi Kashchishanam api Jadu Tistadi Akarmakrit Karyadehi Avasha Karma Sarva Pragati Jare Gunaya Karmendriyani Samyamya Ya Aste Manasa Smaran Indriyartam Vimudatma Mityachara Sa Uchyade Yestva Indriyani Manasa Niyam Mayarambade Arjuna Karmendriye Karma Yogam Asakta Sa Vishishyade नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्म जाययो हि अकर्मणः शरीरायात्रापि च ते न प्रसीदेत् अकर्मणः यज्ञार्थकर्माणोऽन्यत्र लोकयं कर्म बन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गसमाचर सह यज्ञ प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरुवोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्याध्वम् एष वो स्विस्तकामधुक् देवन् भवयतेन तदेव भयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेय परमम् अवाप्य सदा इष्टान् भोगन् हि वो देवा दर्शन्ते यज्ञभावितः तैर्दत्तन् अप्रदायाभियो यो भुक्तेस्तेन एव सः यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषे भुजन्ते ते तो अगं पापा ये पचन्ति आत्मकरणात् आनाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जनयात् आनसम्भवः यज्ञात् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञकर्म समुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विधि ब्रह्माक्षरा समुद्भवं तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम् एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हायः अगायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति यस्तु आत्मरतिरेव स्वयत् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मानि एव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कर्ह्यं न विद्यते नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो न कर्तेन कश्चनः न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चित् अर्थव्यापश्रयः तस्मात् आसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचरः आसक्तो हि अचार्यं कर्म परम् आप्नोति पुरुषः कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धम् आश्रिता जना कथयः लोकसङ्ग्रहम् एवापि संशयन् कर्तुम् अर्हसि यद् आचाराति श्रितस्तत् एव तरो जनः स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते
नामे प्रतति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानावक्तम् अवक्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि यदि हि अहं न वर्तेयं दतु कर्मणि अथान्वितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्या पार्थ सर्वस्यः उत्सिद्युरिमा लोका न कुर्यां कमश्चित् अहं सङ्कस्य च कर्तस्यम् उपहन्य इमा पार्जः सक्तकर्मणि अविद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्तः भारत कुर्याद्विद्वांस तथा सक्तस् चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम् न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञं कर्म सङ्गिनम् जोसयत् सर्वकर्माणि विदन् युक्त संसदान् प्रत्येक क्रियमाणानि गुणे कर्माणि सर्वस्य अहङ्कार विमुक्तात्मा कर्ताम् इति मन्यते तथा वितु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागः गुणगुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वना सज्जते प्रकृतिगुण समुदा सज्जते गुणकर्मसु तान् अकृत्स्न विदो mandan कृत्स्न विना विशर्लयत् महि सर्वाणि कर्माणि संन्यास यदात्मसेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यवा विगतजुर्वः ये Ye matam idam nityam anushchitanti manava Shratavanta asnas yuyanto mushateti apikar mabi yete vedat apyasuyanto nanusuyanti me matam sarvajana vimudam stan vidinastan ish tasa shatram tesa swasya prakted nanadvan api praktimyanti bhutani negrahakim karisyati indriyas yendri Yes, Yarte Ragadevasu Yavyasita Tayurna Vasam Agashat Tahi Asya Paripantina Shrayan Swadharma Viguna Paramadharmasta Anustatat Swadharma Niganam Shreya Paradharma Bhayavaha Arjuna Vacha Atmakena Prayuktoyam Papacharati Purusha Anishamapi Varsnesneha Valad Eva Niyjo Jita Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Kama Esha Kroda Esha Ragaguna Samubhava Mahasano Mahapakma Vidiena Iya Varninam Dumena Riyate Vanir Yatadarso Malena Cha Yato Beno Rutagarbas Tata Tenera Artvam Jana Etena Janino Nita Varina Kamarupena Kanteya Dusperena Lena Cha Indriani Mano Budir Asyashit Sana Ushate Eter Vima Ayate Esa Janiam Artva Dehinam Tasmatvam Indriyani Yada Niyama Pakatar Soba Papanam Prajahinam Jana Vijana Nashanam Indriyani Paranyaho Indrebu Para Manaha Manasta Para Buddhir Yo Buddhe Paratas Tusa Evam Buddhe Param Buddva Samstap Yat Atmana Jahi Sastru Mahabaho Kamarupam Durasadam.
Thank you, Atmamaya Mataji and Akhilesh. We will now read the translation of chapter 3. Radha Damodar Prabhu will be reading it.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruity work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be the most beneficial for me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve the freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duty for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. In the beginning of creation, Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with the sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them, saying, "Be thou happy by yajna," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. In charge of various necessities of life, demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all the necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rain, and rains are produced by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, all pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in the human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such persons live in vain. But for one who takes pleasure in self, whose human life is one of the self-realizations, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in discharge of his prescribed duty, nor has he any reason to not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of the prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, the whole world pursues.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anurag will continue.
Chapter 3, Text 22. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the free results of their prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty arm, does not engage in himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage in themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims of proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions, and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly, are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
There are principles to regulate the attachments and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. It is better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duties better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, is in the very beginning curb this great symbol of lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this unsatiable enemy known as lust.
Thank you, Anurag and Neha. Now we will start with chapter 4. Ram Prabhu and Rekha Mataji. Ram Prabhu and Rekha Mataji will recite the Sanskrit verses.
Yes, ma'am.
Hare Krishna Prabhu and Mataji. You can start now.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha imam vivasvate yogam proktam aham avyayam vivasvan manave praha manur ikshvakave bravit evam parampara praptam imam rajasyo vidu sakalena mata yogo nasta parantapa sa evavyam mayatat maya tetya yoga prokta paranta puratanaha bhaktosmi sakaseti rahasyam he itad uttamam arjuno vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha khatam etad vijaniyam tvam adu proktam iti. Sri Bhagavanuvacha Bahuni me vatitani janmani tava charjuna tanye aham veda sarvani natvam veta parantapa. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san praktam svam adhisthaya prakritim svam adhisthaya sambhavami atma mayaya. Yada yadha dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chatuskrutam dharma samsthapanadhyaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Janma karma cha me divyam evam evoti tatataha tvakta deham punarjanma naiti mamaiti so arjuna. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upasritaha bhavo gnana tapasa bhutamad bhavam agataha.
ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तामस्तथैव भजामि अहम् मम वत्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्या पार्थ सर्वशः काङ्क्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्ता हि देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारम् अपि मां विधि अकर्तारम् अव्ययम् न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्मफले स्पृहा इति मां यो विजानाति कर्मभिर्न सा बध्यते एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वोत्तरं कृतं किं कर्म किम् अकर्मेति कवयोऽपि अत्र मोहिता तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वा मोक्षयसे शुभात् कर्मणो हि अपि बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यं गहना कर्मणो गतिः कर्मणि अकर्मयः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्मणयः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्ता कृष्ण कर्मकृत् यस्य सर्वे समारम्भा कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तम् आहुः पण्डितं बुधाः त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलसङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मणि अभिप्रवर्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः निराशीर्यता चित्तात्मा त्यक्ता सर्वपरिग्रहः शरीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji and Prabhu. Now, Lasya Mataji and family will continue.
यच्चर लभ संतुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमुक्तमित्तरः समासिद्ध्व असिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न बध्यते गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य जनवस्थितचेतसः ज्ञानवस्थितचेतसः कर्म समग्रम प्रविलीयते
ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्म हविर्ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्महतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं Brahma karma samadhina Daivamepa eva pare yagnam Yoginah paryupasate Brahmagnau apare yagnam Yagna neva pajuhate Strotradina indriyanyanye Samya magna sau juhuvate Sabda dina visyananye Indriyagnashu juhuvate Sarva indriya karmani Prana karmani chapare Atma samyama yogesho Juhuvati jnana dipate Dravya yagnas tapo yagna Yoga yagnas tata pare Swadhyaya jnana yagna cha Tatayaha samsita vrataha Apane juhuvati pranam Prane pranam tata pare Prana gati rudva Pranayama parayanaha Apare niyataraha Prana prayasu juhvate Sarva priyate yagna vido Yagna kshapita kalmashaha Yagna sista mata bujaho Yanti brahma sanatanam Nayam loka sthana sya Kuto nayah kuru satamaha Evam bahu vida yagna Vitata brahmano mukhe Karma jana vidhi tan sarvan Evam jnatva vimokshanaye se Shriyan dravya mayad yagnaj Jnana yagnaj tapa prana tapa Sarvam karma khilam parda Jnana pari samaptaye
तद्विधि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः यत् ज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतन्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्यन्यदो मयि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृतं महत् सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि यदैदांसि समिद्धोऽग्नि भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्नि सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तदा न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तस्ययं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति श्रद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानं तत्परसंयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परां शान्तिम् अचिरेणाधिगच्छति अज्ञाश्च श्रद्धाधानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नयं लोकोऽस्ति न परो न सुखं संशयात्मनः योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणं ज्ञानसञ्चिन संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय तस्माद् ज्ञानसम्भूतं हृत्संज्ञानासीनात्मनः चैत्वानं संशयं योगम् अतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत इति श्री Bhagavad Gita Upanishad Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Sastro Sri Krishnarjuna Samvade Jnana Yogo Nama Chaturodhyayaha.
Thank you, Kiran Prabhu, Lasya Mataji, Ashi, and Anuj. Now we will start the translation of chapter 4.
Hare Krishna.
Sachi. Hare Krishna, Neeraj Prabhu, Pushpanjali Mataji, and Sachi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivashwan, and Vivashwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. That very ancient science of the science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Arjuna said, the sun god, Vivashwan, is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? The personality of Godhead said, many, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice or descendant of Bharata and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself.
To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past become purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attain transcendental love for me. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me, and although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work.
All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
Thank you, Mataji, Prabhu, and Sachi. We will continue the reading the translation. Alasya Mataji. Mataji, you have to unmute.
He who is satisfied with grain, which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Some yogis perform worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the sense in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and the life breath and as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. All those performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. O best of Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never be happy on the planet or in this life. What then to the next? All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the more sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Partha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who substitutes his sense ineligible to achieve such knowledge and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Knowledge, armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand the fight.
Thank you, Lasya Mataji and Kiran Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all for joining for Gita Jayanti. It's an extremely auspicious occasion to read Bhagavad Gita. Now, Kannan Prabhu will take over as the MC.
Thank you, Mataji. I will share my screen.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, now we will continue to recite the chapter 5. Jishnu will recite the verses and Harini will read the translations. Jishnu, please turn on your video and start reciting the verse.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 5. Action in Krishna Consciousness. Arjuna Uvacha Sanyasham Karmanam Krishna Punar Yogam Chasham Shashi Yat Shreya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Sunishitam Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Shanyasha Karma Yogascha Nishreya Shakaravubau Tayostu Karma Shanyashat Karma Yogo Vishishyate Neya Shanitya Sanyashi Yona Dveshti Nakankshati Nirdvandvo Hi Mahabaho Shukam Bandai Pramuchyate Shankya Yogo Pritak Bala Pravadanti Na Pandita Ekam Apyashtita Shamyang Ubayor Vindate Phalam Yat Shankyai Prapyate Sthanam Yad Tad Yogairapi Gamyate Ekam Shamkyam Cha Yogam Cha Ya Pashyati Shapashyati Shanya Shashtu Mahabaho Dukkam Aptum Ayogataha Yoga Yukto Munir Brahma Nachirena Digachati Yoga Yukto Vishudhatma Vichitatma Jitendriyaha Sharva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvanapi na lipyate Naiva Kinchit Karomiti Yukto Manyeta Tatvavit Pashyan Shrinvan Sprishan Jigran Ashnan Gachan Shapan Swasham Pralapan Vishrajan Grinhan Unmishani Mishanapi Indriyan Indriyarteshu Vartanta iti Darayan Brahmanyadaya Karmani Shangam Tyaktva Karotiya Lipyate na Shapapena Padmapatram Ivambasham Kayena Manasha Buddhya Kevalair Indriyairapi Yogina Karma Kurvanti Shangam Tyaktatma Shuddhaye Yukta Karma Phalam Tyaktva Shantim Apnoti Naishtikim Ayukta Kama Karena Phale Shakto Nibhadyate Sarva Karmani Manasha Shanyashyashteshu Kamvashi Navadvare Pure Dehi Naiva Kurvana Karayan Na Kartvam Na Karmani Lokasya Shrajate Prabhu Na Karma Phalasham Yogam Shabhavastu Pravartate Nadate Kasyachit Papam Na Chaiva Shukritam Vibhuhu Ajnanenavritam jnanam tena muyanti jantava jnanena tutarajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavajnanam prakashyati tatparam तद्भूतयस्तदात्मानस्तन्निष्ठस्तत्परायणः गच्छन्त्या पुनरवृत्तिं नानानिर्धूतकल्मषाः विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि सुनिचैव स्वपाके च पण्डिता समदर्शिनः इहैव तैर्जिता सर्गो येषां येष्टितं मनः निर्दोषं हि शमां ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिता न प्राश्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरा बुद्धिरशामूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थिताः भायास्पाशेषु अशक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मानि यत्सुखं स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखम् अक्षयम् अश्नुति ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यान्तवन्त कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः शक्नोति हैव यशोदं प्रक्षरीरविमोक्षदाशनात् कामक्रोधो भवान् वेगं सयुक्तः स सुखी नरः योत्ना शुको न तारारमास् तथान्तज्योतिरेव यं स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषः क्षीणद्वैद्वा यतामानः सर्वभूतहिते रतः कामक्रोधविमुक्तानां यतीनां यत्तचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदात्मनाम् स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यं चक्षुष्टैवन्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापनौ शमौ कृत्वा नाशाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनो बुद्धिर्मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगते च भयक्रोधो यशदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारां यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिं रक्षति.
Thank you, Jishnu. Now, Harini will read the translations.
Arjuna said, Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?"
The personality of Godhead replied, "The renunciation of work and working devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, working devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to always be renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage, is completely liberated. O mighty armed Arjuna.
Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both.
One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are.
Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
One who walks in devotion, who is pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all, because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water.
The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with their senses, only for the purpose of purification.
The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all action, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. 14.
The embodiment spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of the action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature.
Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge.
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge all are fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision, a learned and gentle, The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Outcast.
Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman.
A person who is neither rejoiced upon achieving something pleasant, nor lament upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the signs of God, is already situated in the transcendence.
Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them.
Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme.
Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation, the Supreme, in the very near future.
Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries.
Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purpose to the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga or action in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, Mataji, and Harini. Now we will move on to next chapter, chapter 6. Ishan will read recite the verses, and Sukanya Mataji will read the translations. Just a second.
వాళ్ళు షేర్ చేస్తున్నారులే. అవసరం లేదు, పెడుతున్నారు. హరే కృష్ణ.
Okay, Ishan, you may continue now.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Anasrita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Aha Sa Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Naniragninna Chakriyaha Yam Sanyasamiti Prahuhu Yogam Tam Vidhi Pandava Nahya Sanyasta Sankalpaha Yogi Bhavati Kastana Ariruksha Muner Yogam Karma Karana Mutrate Yoga Rodasya tasyaiva समाकारणमुच्यते यदा हीनेन्द्रियादेषु न कर्मस्वनुसज्जते सर्वसङ्कल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदोच्यते बन्धुरात्मत्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुते वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत् चित्तात्मना प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्टास्मकाञ्चनः सुहृन्मित्रार्योदासीना मध्यस्थद्वेषबन्धुषु साधु स्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशिष्यते योगी युञ्जीत सततम् आत्मानं रहस्यस्ततः एकाकीयत चित्तात्मा निराशीरपरिग्रहः शुचौ देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरमासनमात्मनः नात्युच्चितं नातिनीचं शैलाजिन कुशोत्तरं तत्रैकाग्रं मनः कृत्वा यतचित्तेन्द्रियक्रियः उपविश्यासने युञ्ज्यात् योगमात्मविशुद्धये समं कायशिरोग्रीवं धारयन्नचलं स्थिरः सम्प्रेक्ष्य नासिकाग्रं स्वं दिशश्चानवलोकयन् प्रशान्तात्मा विगतभिः ब्रह्मचारिव्रते स्थितः मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तः युक्त आसीत् मत्परः युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगी नियतमानसः शान्तिं निर्वाणपरमां मत्संस्थामधिगच्छति नात्यस्नतस्तु योगोऽस्ति न चैकान्तमनस्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन युक्ताहारविहारस्य युक्तचेतस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यः युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा यदा दीपो निवातस्थः नेङ्गते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यत चित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यत्रो परमते चित्तं निरुद्धं योगसेवया Yatra chaivatmanatmanam pasyanatmani tushyati sukhamatyantikam yattad buddhigrahyamatīndriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tatvatah yam labdva chaparam labam manyatenadikam tatah yasmin stito na dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidyat dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samnitam स निश्चयेन योक्तव्यः योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा.
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamam Tattva Sarvana Seshataham Manasaiventriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantataham Sanaiha Sanairuparume Bujjatuti Kruhitayam Atma Samstam Manakrutva Nakinchata Vichintayate Yato Yato Nicharati Manas Chanchalamas Tatastato Niyamyatya Atmanyeva Vasamnayate Pradantamanasam Hyenam Yoginam Sukhamuttatam Upaiti Santarajasam Brahmabhutam Kalmasham Yam Janmeva Sadatmanam Yogi Vikita Kalmashaham Sukena Brahma Samsparsama Achantam Sukhamashnate Sarva Bhuta Stamatmanam Sarva Bhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samatarsanaha Yomam Pasyati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamay Pasyati Tasyaham Na Pranasyami Sachame Prasyati Sarvabhuta Stitam Yomam Bhajak Putvema Stitaham Sarvadha Vartamanopi Sayogi Vartate Atmapamyena Sarvatra Samam Pasyati O Arjuna Sukam Vayati Vatukam Sayogi Paramo Mataham Arjuna Vuvacham Yom Yom Yogasvayo Proktaha Samyena Madhusudhanam Etasyaham Na Pasyami Chanchalapatvi Timstiram Chanchalam Himana Krishnam Pramadibala Vruddhadham Tasyaham Nikraham Manye Vayurivasatushkaram Sri Bhagavan Vuvacham Asamsayam Mahabhavo Manodurmikraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairaghena Chagruhyate Asamyatatmana Yoga Dushprava iti me matihim Vasitatmana tu yatatam Sakno Vaptumapayataham Arjuna Vuvacham Ayati Hasarta Yopetum Yoga Chalitamana Aprapya Yoga Samsiddham Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati Kachinno Bhaya Viprashna Seno Brahma Vinasyati Apratishto Mahabhavo Vimudo Brahmanapadi Etanmane Samsaya Krishna Cheturmahasyata Seshataham Tvadanyaha Samsaya Pasyam Chaitanya Hupapajyate Sri Bhagavan Vuvacham Pata Naivekhanamutram Vinasasasya Vijyate Nahi Kalyana Krutmakachyatu Durgathim Tata Gachyati Prapta Punya Krutam Lokanum Ushitva Sasvateka Samaham Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate Adava Yogi Nameva Kule Bhavati Dhimatam Etate Dhullabataram Loke Janmayadi Drishyam Tatratam Buddhi Samyogam Lavate Paurvadeikam Yatate Chatato Bhuyaham Samsiddho Kurunandanam Purvabhyasena Taima Hrayate Havasopi Saham Granganasurapi Yogasyam Sapta Brahmati Vartate Prayatna Dhatmanastu Yogi Samsiddha Kalvishaham Aneka Janma Samsiddhastam Tato Yati Param Gatim Tapasvipo Badiko Yogi Gnanepyopi Matodikaham Karme Chodaka Yogi Tasma Yogi Bhavajunam Yoginamapi Sarvesham Madgatenantaratmanam Sratnavan Bhajayate Yomam Same Yuktatamavataham Om Tatsati Srimad Bhagavatesu Upanishatesu Brahma Vijayam Yoga Sasri Sri Kashtachana Samvade Atma Samyoga Yoge Nama Shashtojaya Namaham.
Thank you, Prabhu and Ishan. Now, Mataji will read the translation. Suganya Mataji will read the translation. Please go ahead, Mataji.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated, is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire, no performs no duty. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, linking oneself with the supreme, O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire of sense gratification. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all the material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul, and he is enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self realization and is called yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in a transcendence and self controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediator, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and sinners, all with the equal mind. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low, should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities, and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold one's body, neck, head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should mediate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility once becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi by practice yoga discipline his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in the boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. Arjun Prabhu will continue to read the translation.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance, by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone, and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mood of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. A true yogi observes me in all beings and sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remain always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and inadorable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to the worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? That is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in this spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Oh, if unsuccessful, after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Guru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empirist, and greater than the fugitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me and yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
Thank you, Sukanya Mataji and Arjun Prabhu, for reading the translation. Next, we will move on to chapter 7. Neka Mataji will recite the verse and Umesh Prabhu will read the translations.
Hare Krishna.
Just a sec.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Asakta Mana Partha Yogam Yunjam Madashraya Asamshayam Samagramam Yata Nashashita Shranu Jnanam Tiham Savishnanam Idam Vakshyami Yashetaha Yagnat Vaneha Bhuyunaj Nyatvayam Avishashyate Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschit Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvata Bhumi Aponalo Vayu Kammano Buddhirevacha Ahankara iti yame Minna Prakriti Rashtara Apariyam Tanyam Prakritim Vitti Me Param Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho Yahidam Dharyate Jagat Etadyoni Bhutani Sarvaniti Upadharaya Aham Kritsnasya Jagata Prabhava Pralayastata Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Mani Ganeva Rasoham Apsu Konteya Prabhashmi Shashi Suryayo Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabda Ke Parsham Nishu Punyo Gandha Prithviyam Cha Tejas Chashmi Vibhavasho Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu Tapas Chashmi Tapasvishu Bijam Mam Sarva Bhutanam Viddhi Partha Sanatanam Buddhi Matam Ashmi Tejas Vinam Aham Balam Balavatam Chaham Kamaraga Vivarjitam Dharma Viruddha Bhuteshu Kamo Ismi Bharata Sabha Ye chev sattvika bhava rajasastamsasche chaye मत्ता एवेति तन्विद्धि नात्वहं तेषु ते मयि त्रिभिर्गुणामयैर्भावैर् सर्वम् इदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति मामेव भया परमव्ययम् देवी हेषा गुणामायि माम माया दुरत्यया मामे वे प्रपद्यन्ते मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते नामां दुष्कृत्नो मूढा प्रपद्यन्ते नराधमा माया प्रहता ज्ञाना अशुरं भावमश्रितः चातुर्विधा भजन्ते मां जना सुकृतनो अर्जुन आर्तो जिज्ञासुर अर्थार्थी ज्ञानी च भारतर्षभा तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्ता एकभक्तिर्विशेष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं सा च मम प्रिया उदरा सर्व एवेति ज्ञानिते आत्मविस्मृतम् अशिष्टा सा हि युक्तात्मा मामेवनुतात्माम् एकतिम् बहूनां जन्मनाम् अन्ते ज्ञानवान् मां प्रपद्यते वासुदेवा सर्वमेति सा महात्मा सुदुर्लभा कामेष्टेस्तेर्हिता ज्ञाना प्रपद्यन्ते न देवता तं तं नियममसाथा प्रकृत्या नियता स्वया यो यो यं तनुं भक्ता श्रद्धायाच्युतम् इच्छति तस्य चलं श्रद्धां तामे विधाधयम् अहम् तातया श्रद्धया युक्तस्तया रदानमह्यते लभते च तथा कामान् माये विहितान् हितान् अन्तवत्तु फलं तेषां तद्भवति अल्पमेधसां देवान् देवायजो यन्ति मद्भक्ता यन्ति मामपि अव्यक्तं व्यक्तिम् अपानं मन्यन्ते माम बुद्धया परं भावम् अजनन्तो मामव्ययम् अनुतात्मा नाथं प्रकाशा सर्वस्य योगमाया समावृता मूढो यं नाभिजानाति लोको मामजम् अव्ययम् वेदाहं समतीतानि वर्तमानानि च अर्जुन भविष्यानि च भूतानि मां तु वेद न कश्चन इच्छा द्वेषा समुदेह द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप येषां त्वन्तागतं पापं जाननं पुण्यकर्मणां ते द्वन्द्वमोहनिर्मुक्ता भजन्ति मां दृढव्रता जरामरणां मोक्षाय मामश्रिता यतान्ति ये ब्रह्म तद्विदु कृत्स्नाम् अध्यात्मं कर्म चाखिलम् साधिभूतादिदेवा मां साधियज्ञां चाये विदु प्रायाणाकालेऽपि च मां ते विदुर्युक्तचेतसः.
Thank you, Mataji. Now Umesh Prabhu will read the translation.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Now hear, O son of Partha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Out of my thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these eight constitute my separate material energies. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in the ether and ability in man. I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the finances of all the aesthetics. O son of Partha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, and the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principle. O Lord of Bharatas, Arjuna, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am, in one sense, everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Deluded by these three modes, deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. This divine energy of mine, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and whose partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. O best among the Bharatas, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of the wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him, and he is dear to me. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in the knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and the most perfect goal. After many births and deaths, he who is actually knowledge, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. I am in everyone's heart as super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I am the supreme personality of unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all the things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. O scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and that take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all the matters of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Umesh Prabhu. Next, we will move on to chapter 8. Sridevi will recite the verses. Sridevi and myself will recite the verses, and Aditya and Akshaya will read the translations. Yes, Sridevi, you can go.
Hare Krishna devotees, attaining the Supreme. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam cha kim proktam aditaivam kim uchyate adiyatna kadam kotra dehesmin madhushutana prayana kale shakatam jneyo siniyatatmapihi Shri Bhagavan Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swapavotyatmamuchyate Bhudabhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Samknitah Adibhutam Charo Bhava Purushachaditaivatam Adiyatno Hamevatre Dehe Deha Prutamvarah Andakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yadi nastyatra samshayah yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajat yante kalevaram tam yevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitah tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmarayutya cha मय्यर्पितमनो भूतिर्मामे वैशस्य संशयः अभ्यास योगयुक्तेन चेतसानान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं यादिपार्थानुचिन्तयन् कविं पुराणम् अनुशासितारम् अनोरणीर्यां स अनुस्मरेत्यः सर्वस्य दातारमचिन्त्य रूपम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात् प्रयाणकाले मनसासलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगफलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणमावेश सम्यक् सतं परं पुरुषम् उवैति दिव्यम् यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यत्यधयो वीतरागाः यदीक्षन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं धरन्ति तत्ते पदं सङ्ग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृतिनिरुत्य च मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्तिदो योगधारणाम् ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमं गतिम् अनन्यचेता सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयम् अशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां कथा अब्रह्मपुवनाल्लोक पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्तं देहो रात्रविदो जनाः अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्व प्रभवत्य हरागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैव व्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामस एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे कमेव च पार्थ प्रभवत्यहरागमे परस्तस्मात् तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
अव्यक्तो शरयुक्तस् दमाहु परमं कदिं यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते दद्धाम परमं मम पुरुषस्पर पार्थ भक्तया लभ्यस्दवनन्यया यस्यान्तसादानि भूतानि येने सर्वं इदं ततं यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं सैव योगिनः प्रयादायान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि प्रदर्शभ अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मा स उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाद गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्म विदो जनः तुमो रात्रिस् ददा कृष्ण सन्मासा दक्षिणायनं तत्र शान्त्रमसं चयोदिर् योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते शुक्ल कृष्णे कदि हीयते जगद शाश्वते मते एक यायात्यवनवृत्तम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः नैदे श्रुति पात जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुगो भवार्जुन वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपेषु सैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यबलं वृद्धिष्टम् अत्येति तत् सर्वम् इदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानम् उपैति सात्यम्. Now Aditya and Akshaya will read the translations. Aditya, go ahead. Aditya? Radha Damodar Das Prabhu, could you please unmute Aditya?
Sure, Prabhu. What is the name? I thought it's
Akshaya. Akshaya.
Hare Krishna. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the Self? What are fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body? O Madhusudana. And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the Self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies and the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. O best of embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is the Adhibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adideva. And I, Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adhyajana, the Lord of sacrifice. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers that when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He who meditates on me is as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind and the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks that the Supreme Person thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Partha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. The one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's 1 day, and such also is the duration of his night. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading and everything is situated within him. O best of the Bhartas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. According to the Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Although the devotees know these 2 paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered, therefore be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service does not benefit of the results derived from studying in the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on to chapter 9. Sugopi Mataji will recite the verses, and Harinamurtha Prabhu will read the translations.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, all the devotees. Chapter
Just,
9.
just a second, Mataji. I'll load the verses.
Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. Text 1, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajgnatva moksha se subhad. Text 2, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyakshvagumam Dharmayam Susukham Kartum Avyayam Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasya Hasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Sansara Vartmani Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadyaktamurtina matstani sarvabhutani na chaham teshvavastita na cha mat sani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brahma cha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana यथाक्षास्थितो नित्यं वायु सर्वत्र को महान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानि ते उपधारय सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकं कल्पक्षय पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहं प्रकृतिं स्वाम् अवस्थाभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्रामम् imam कृत्स्नम् अवश्यं प्रकृते वशात्. Text 9. न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु मयादेशेन प्रकृति सूयते सचराचरं हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते अवजानन्ति मामूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावमजानन्तो मम भूतमहेश्वरम् मोघशमोघकर्मणो मोघज्ञानविचेतसा राक्षीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिता महात्मानस्तु मां पार्था दैवीं प्रकृतिम् आश्रिता भजन्ति अनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिम् अव्ययम् सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दर्वता नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते ज्ञानयज्ञेन चापि अन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकेत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम् अहं कतुरहं यज्ञा स्वधाहम् अहम् औषधं मन्त्रोऽहम् अहम् एवाज्यम् अहम् अग्निरहं हुतं पिताहम् अस्य जगतो माता दाता पितामहा वेद्यं पवित्रम् ओङ्कार ऋक्साम् अयजुर् एव च गतिर्भरता प्रभु साक्षी निवासा शरणं सुरत् प्रभुवा प्रलयस्थानं निधानं बीजम् अव्ययम् तपाम्यहम् अहं वर्षं निगृह्णामि उत्सृजामि च अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च सदसच्चाहम् अर्जुन त्रैविद्या मां सोमपापूतपापा यज्ञैरिष्टस्वगतिं प्रार्थयन्ते ते पुण्यमसाद्य सुरेन्द्रलोकम् अश्नन्ति दिव्यान् दिवि देवभोगान् तं भुक्त्वा तं ते भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालं क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति एवं त्रिधर्ममम् अनुप्रपन्ना गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जना पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम् येऽपि अन्यदेवता भक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विता तेऽपि माम् एव कौन्तेय यजन्ति अविधिपूर्वकम् Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhur evacha natu mam abhijananti tatvena tascha te yanti deva vratadevan pitran yanti pitravrata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajino pimam patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati तदहं भक्ते उप्रतम अश्नामि प्रत आत्मना यत् करोषि यदश्नासि यज्जुहोषि ददासि यत् तपस्यसि कौन्तेय तत्कुरुषस्व मदर्पणम् शुभाशुभफलेरेवं मोक्षसे कर्मबन्धन संन्यासयोगयुक्तात्मा विमुक्तो माम् उपहस्यसि समोहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिया ये भजन्ति त्युमां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम् अपि चेत् सुदुराचारो भजते माम् अनन्यभाक् साधुरेव स मन्तव्य सम्यक् व्यवसितो हि स क्षिप्रं भक्ति धर्मात्मा शाश्वत शान्तिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्ता प्रणश्यति मां हि पार्था व्यपाश्रित्य येऽपि स्युः पापयोन्यः स्त्रियो वैश्यस्तथा शूद्रास्तेऽपि यान्ति परां गतिं किं पुनर्भावना पुण्या भोक्ता राजर्षयस्तथा अनित्यमसुखं लोकम् इमं प्राप्य भजस्व माम् Text 34 Manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame veshyasi yuktvayavam atmanam matparayana. I'll read the translations as Prabhu is not feeling well. Chapter 9 The Most Confidential Knowledge, Text 1 Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Text 2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. By me, in my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And yet, everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. Understanding that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. O son of Pratha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering of the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. O Arjuna, I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, He is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. O son of Pratha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Welcome, Prabhu.
Now, Satisara Prabhu, back to you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Veena Mataji.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Happy Gita Jayanti to everyone. Thank you all for joining. So now Satyasara Prabhu is going to give a summary of all the 9 chapters. Excellent recitation by kids and grown-ups and reading the translations. Over to you, Satyasara Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Matajis and Prabhus and kids. So I have been asked to give the summary of all 18 chapters. So I wrote the summary based on how the flow of Gita is. How how Arjuna approached Krishna and how Krishna answered Arjuna's questions and how he was taking Arjuna from the total hopeless situation to a person with complete determination and devotion. So that is the flow of Gita. So with that said, I wrote the summary based on Srila Prabhupada's illuminating purports. So it's a beautiful purport Srila Prabhupada wrote. So with that said, first chapter is the title entitled Observing the Armies. So the summary goes like this. The opposite armies stood poised for battle. Arjuna, the mighty warrior, saw his intimate relatives, teachers, and friends in both armies ready to fight and sacrifice their lives. So he became, he was overcome by grief and pity. Arjuna failed in strength and his mind became bewildered, meaning confused, and he gave up his determination to fight. And in the first chapter, Arjuna gives the 4 reasons why he doesn't want to fight. And the second chapter, he was giving the 5th reason. So I just want to enumerate all 5 here. The first reason he gave was compassion. So he said, Arjuna's compassion for those he is about to slay dictates he should not fight. So that's the first reason he gave. I'm very compassionate. Second is enjoyment. Now Arjuna thinks he will not be able to enjoy his kingdom if the kingdom is won at the cost of the lives of his family members. So second reason. Third is destruction of family, meaning irreligion and unwanted progeny will overcome the family. Performance of traditional rituals and varnashrama oriented Vedic rituals will not be performed, and when you don't do these things, then you have to go to hell. So Arjuna doesn't want to be the destroyer of the family tradition. So that is the third reason. The fourth he gave is saintliness and fear of sinful reactions. As we all know, Arjuna is a very saintly personality. So he was thinking that, enjoying the royal happiness is not worth the resulting sinful reactions for destroying the family and killing his superiors. So he was very fearful of the sinful reactions. That's the fourth reason. In the beginning of second chapter, he gave the fifth reason. So I want to call it out here. The fifth one is indecision. Arjuna does not actually know which is better, conquering the enemy or being conquered by them. So he was very indecisive. So these are the 5 reasons he gave, and that is a summary of the first chapter. Next chapters, chapter number 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. So Krishna's instructions to Arjuna, meaning the philosophical teachings of Bhagavad Gita, begin in second chapter. Okay, so Krishna provides a summary of all the instructions of Bhagavad Gita in this chapter. So this is a Vedic tradition. Vedic literatures are written in that way. In the beginning itself, the first paragraph or first verse, or in the first chapter of the Vedic literature, you get the summary of what this literature is talking about. So that is what exactly Krishna was following. As we discussed, Arjuna was bewildered and perplexed. So he did not know what is the proper course of action. So at that time, Arjuna submits himself as a disciple to Krishna, saying that, Krishna, I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please guide me. I do not know what to do in the situation. Then Krishna begins his teachings by presenting Sankhya philosophy, very important, in the second canto. Sankhya philosophy, the analytical study of matter and spirit, meaning we are not just body, we are spirit soul. And Krishna beautifully explains that using Sankhya in the beginning of the second chapter. To alleviate Arjuna's horror at the thought of killing his relatives, Krishna contrasts the eternality of the soul. So Arjuna was thinking that I'm killing my relatives, so they are dying. But Krishna was saying, no, nobody dies. The soul doesn't die. At the end of the day, we are spirit soul, the real self. So with the temporariness of the material body, so Krishna beautifully explains that. Then Krishna presents karma kanda philosophy to convince Arjuna. He advises Arjuna that if Arjuna, you die in battle, you will be promoted to heaven, even if you go with karma kanda point of view. If you win the battle, you will rule the earth, and there is an enjoyment for you. Even if you die, you enjoy, you go to heaven. If you win the battle, you still enjoy because you are going to rule the earth. So the dishonor will overcome him if he leaves the battlefield. So that is what Krishna was presenting to Arjuna by talking about karma kanda philosophy. Then Krishna advises that Arjuna's reason for not fighting, although having some basis in Vedic scriptures, Arjuna was missing the higher purpose of the Vedas. Specifically, the purpose of the Vedas is to transcend the material circumstance through yoga practice. What is yoga? Yoga, which is the art of all work. Art means to work in the mode of selfless service without being attached to the results of his fighting. That is what the real yoga is. So Krishna defines that. So fighting simply because it is Krishna's desire, with his mind focused on Krishna and in full resolve, that is real yoga. So Krishna was teaching Arjuna at that point. So then he's saying that by acting in this way, the self-realized souls do not get any sinful reaction, and they are able to get out of the cycle of birth and death, the samsara chakra. So Krishna beautifully explains that to Arjuna. Then Arjuna asks about the nature of the self-realized souls. So that is what the second chapter ends. Then the Lord explains the self-realized souls are free from desire to enjoy the senses, and they have a steady mind, indifferent from good and evil, have a taste for devotional activities, and they have full control over the senses by engaging them in devotional activities. They are the self-realized soul. So Krishna defines the self-realized soul at the end of second chapter. Then he says, one who is connected with the Supreme, one who is not connected with the Supreme, or when we are not doing bhakti, devotional activity, cannot have steady mind or peace or happiness in this world. Krishna just concludes it in that way, the second chapter. Then the beginning of third chapter is called Karma Yoga. So Arjuna confuses. He's confused with Buddhi Yoga. Arjuna was thinking in the beginning of third chapter, Buddhi Yoga has retirement from active life. That is what Buddhi Yoga is all about. Because Krishna talked about the self-realized souls, he talked about how they practice Buddhi Yoga and things like that in the second chapter towards the end. So Arjuna inquires why Krishna previously recommended Buddhi Yoga, using one's intelligence to link to the Supreme, and has condemned the fruitive work. But now Krishna is telling Arjuna, you have to fight. So Arjuna was confused. So then Krishna replies that there are two ways to realize the self. One is Sankhya Yoga, another one is Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga means work in devotion. Do your duties with devotion. So Krishna is telling it is not possible for one to abstain from work because the soul by nature is very active. So giving up work without purification of material contaminations will not get perfection. And one will just be a pretender only. They may look like they are renounced, they don't want to do certain things, but inside they may have the strong desire for doing that. So then they will act like a pretender. They are pretenders. So that is a point Krishna was making. So then performing work in devotion, which is nothing but Krishna consciousness. So Buddhi Yoga, here we can equate to Krishna consciousness. Performing work in devotion, one's prescribed duty is better than not performing any work. That is a very important point Krishna is making in the beginning of 3rd chapter. Meaning, do your work in devotion than giving up the work. So work in devotion performed for the satisfaction of Vishnu will cleanse the heart of materialistic propensities and make one free from bondage. So this is the important point. Work in devotion performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, satisfaction of Vishnu, will cleanse the heart of material propensities. And that will make us exit from this repeated cycle of birth and death. So then he talks about if one cannot perform work in devotion with detachment, then one can perform work as prescribed in Karma Kanda section of the Vedas by performing yagna, sacrifices for the pleasure of Vishnu. In that way, you are building some punya. So if you gain a lot of punya, in the next life, you may take birth as a devotee or in a devotee family or in a Brahmana family. Then your chances of practicing Bhakti Yoga is more. So that is the point Krishna was making. Then when one performs actions fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, has no other duty to perform, and by worshipping thus with detachment, one will attain the supreme. So this is the point he's making. If you are able to do your household duties or your office work or whatever in Krishna consciousness, then you are covered on all aspects. No sinful reactions, and all the sinful reactions you accumulated will be burnt, and you will attain the supreme destination at the end of this life. So he's making that point as well. But the ignorant perform work with attachment, the learned men engage their propensity to work in devotion. So then Krishna was making that difference. People are ignorant, they will work with attachment to enjoying the result. Learned man will work with the devotion. Then Krishna summarizes that particular section by instructing Arjuna to perform work only for the satisfaction of Krishna, without self-motivation, by following Krishna's instructions faithfully, without having any envy. You do like this, Arjuna, then you will be free from all kinds of bondage. And Krishna summarizes that particular section in the 3rd chapter in that way. So then Arjuna inquires, Krishna, previously you recommended Buddhi Yoga, meaning using one's intelligence to link to the Supreme. You condemned fruity work also, and you are asking me to fight now. So is it not a fruity work? Then Krishna replies saying that I recommended one process with two stages. That's where you're introducing the Gyan. You're saying that there is a karma path and there is a Jnana path, Arjuna. Then Krishna started to talk about the lust. He's saying Arjuna that, Arjuna, the insatiable lust is the cause of all sinful activity every living entities perform in this world. Through lust, sitting in the senses, because lust is in the senses. Lust is in the mind, in the intelligence. The soul's knowledge is covered, then the soul goes on through the body and through the senses to the mind and engages in sinful activity. So then Krishna was telling Arjuna that one has to regulate the senses by the performance of duties with detachment. You have to regulate the senses. Study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. That's why studying the Vedic scriptures is very important. And be Krishna conscious. Do all your activities with devotion. And that's how you can conquer the enemy of lust. He ends the 3rd chapter with this particular point. Then as Krishna introduced karma and jnana path, he wants to explain on jnana. So that is the 4th chapter. 4th chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Here for the first time in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna clearly distinguishes himself from ordinary jivas or ordinary living entities by saying that while I remember past appearances I remember everything. I know everything. Arjuna, you have forgotten them because you are ordinary living entity. So Krishna distinguishes himself that he says that he is the supreme. And he says, unlike ordinary souls, karma does not impose birth and death on Krishna. He's making that point as well. Karma doesn't touch me because I am superior to karma. Then he says, I appear for my own reasons. Then he was giving a different reasons why he comes to this world in different avatars. He comes as Kurma, he comes as Matsya, he comes as Vamana, he comes as Parasuram, he comes as Lord Ram, and he takes different avatars, and he comes to this world for his own reasons. What are the reasons? To deliver the pious, to destroy the miscreants, and to re-establish the religious principles, a dharma. For that I come. Then he says that one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities attains liberation. He's beautifully explaining that. So that's why reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita is very important, because we can understand his nature, understand his appearance, and understand his instructions, so we can mold our life in that way. So then he says, those who take refuge in me are purified by such knowledge and achieve love for me. Krishna beautifully saying that as well. Then Krishna again explains the intricacies of action and how by being situated in transcendental knowledge, one becomes free from karmic reactions. In the third chapter, he talked about if you do actions without devotion, or if you do actions with attachment, then you are bound by karma. So he explains here that you need to understand the karma will be there, but you need to have a transcendental knowledge and act according to the knowledge. Then you will be free from karmic reaction. So he's making that point again. So then he says the learned man in full knowledge renounces self-interested actions and acts only for the supreme. Making the point again. He's making the point again. Just do it for me. Then he says, giving up all sense of proprietorship over your possessions and acting only for the bare necessities of life, you will be unaffected by the reactions of work. Krishna was making that point very, very clearly. Then Krishna explains that the transcendental knowledge destroys karmic reactions and brings attainment of supreme spiritual peace. And beautifully he does that. So developing a knowledge is very important for us, and that's what we are trying to do today, and of course every week as well. Then he says, those without faith in transcendental knowledge, however, they attain neither happiness nor God consciousness in this life and in future lives. Krishna makes it very clear. Those without faith in transcendental knowledge, which is coming from the scriptures, attain neither happiness nor God consciousness. That is the point. Krishna makes it very clear towards end of the fourth chapter. In conclusion, Krishna commands Arjuna to destroy his doubts by spiritual knowledge. Armed with yoga, he tells Arjuna, stand and fight, Arjuna. I am telling you, for my satisfaction, you do it. That is the point he was making in fourth chapter. Then come fifth chapter entitled Karma Yoga in Krishna Consciousness. Again, Arjuna asks a question in the beginning of the chapter. He says, Krishna, whether renunciation is superior to working in devotion or not? Should I renounce and go, or should I, as you said, work in devotion? Which is superior, Krishna? He was asking that question. Then Krishna replies, working in devotion is superior to renunciation of work. So going to forest or going to Himalayas and sitting and doing, that is not what Krishna recommends. You live here, have a normal life, but do it for the satisfaction of the Lord. So he's making that point very, very clear. And that one who is detached from the result of his work is the one who is truly renounced. See, amazing point. You can do all your work, all your duties, but don't be attached to the result of it. Give the result to Krishna. Then you are the truly renounced sannyasi, not the person who goes and sits somewhere and renounces everything. Although he says the result of renunciation and devotional service are ultimately the same, devotional service is superior for the devotee because they can achieve Krishna very fast. So it's a fast track. By practicing bhakti, we can achieve Krishna. So that Krishna makes that point in the beginning of the fifth chapter. Then he talks about a pure soul does not become entangled even while working as his consciousness is fixed on Krishna. Because the pure soul knows that while the material senses are engaged with sense objects, he does nothing. One is unaffected by sinful action and is not entangled when he performs his work, without attachments, surrendering the results to Krishna, with no greed for fruits. So Krishna was making that point. Then he was talking about action in Krishna consciousness, of action in Krishna consciousness. Krishna says that leads to enlightenment and happiness within the city of 9 gates, the physical body. City of 9 gates in physical body, because with its 9 openings, because the body has 9 openings. So situated in realization, the master of the city sees the modes of nature at work within himself and others around him. So that's how the person gets the knowledge and starts to see the world around him. Okay. Then he says that one should tolerate, the bodily and mental urges, and his happiness, his activities, and everything. One has to really tolerate, and not very elated when there is happiness, and completely depressed when there is a sadness. Instead of that, one should have that equality of vision and focused on the goals. And here Krishna is talking about the goals. The goal is achieving understanding that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. So that's the point he was making. And then one become free from, if you focus on your soul, you are not acting on the body, then we will be free from desire, fear, and anger. In that way, we'll be fully liberated through Ashtanga Yoga. So Krishna introduces the Ashtanga Yoga towards the end of the 5th chapter. So just to summarize the 5th chapter, it's a little philosophical chapter. In summary, Lord Krishna declares himself to be the supreme proprietor, the supreme beneficiary of all work, and the supreme friend of every living being. He promises peace from material pangs for anyone who knows him in this way. So that is the 5th chapter. Then we come to 6th chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga. In chapter 6, if you see, Krishna outlines the path of Dhyana Yoga technique. It is called Ashtanga Yoga, the 8-fold mechanical meditative practice. Why Krishna was talking about this? Because he was telling in the previous chapter, right? One has to control the senses, by checking, tolerating the urges of mind and body and things like that. How do you do it? By one way to do that is by following Dhyana Yoga. So then he was telling that you control the mind and senses and focus one's concentration on Paramatma. In the 5th chapter, at the end, he was talking about having the goal, right, within. What is that goal? Initially, it is soul. First, we need to understand we are not this body, we are spirit soul. Then you realize the Paramatma. So here he was telling that, Arjuna, one should also, one can also practice Dhyana Yoga to realize the supreme soul, which is Paramatma within. And that can be the goal also, because the form of Krishna within the heart is Paramatma. Then he was talking about one can advance in yoga through detached work, which means working without the desire for sense gratification. Again, you can see this point he is repeatedly saying in every chapter. You do your duties, do your work, but don't be attached. Don't do it for your sense gratification. Do it as a matter of duty to please the Supreme Lord. So that should be the goal. So he's making the point again in 6th chapter. And he was telling that this can be achieved by controlling the mind. Then he says, such a yogi sees happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, pebbles, stones, gold, everything is same. They don't see any difference at all, because they do everything for the Supreme Lord's satisfaction. So they're not disturbed by these worldly things. Then he's saying that when somebody advances further in bhakti, he regards well-wishers, the envious, the pious, the sinners also equally. He does not see anybody different. That is a further advancement in bhakti. At that stage, the yogi is called Yoga Rudra stage. Krishna introduces the Yoga Rudra. At that stage, the yogi can give up Nishkama Karma Yoga. Amazing point. He will make that in the 6th chapter. Then Krishna summarizes the methodology and the ultimate goal of Ashtanga Yoga system. He talks about sitting postures, breathing exercises, sense and mind control, by controlling them, that culminates in samadhi, or consciousness fixed on the super soul. As I said in the beginning, I was telling, the goal should be within, which is Paramatma. And how do you achieve it? One way is using Ashtanga Yoga. He was talking about that. Then he was talking about Yoga Yukta. Yoga Yukta means one who has attained perfection in yoga, one who has a steady mind, fixed on the Supreme. He is already liberated. They may live in this world, but they are not affected by all these worldly things. They're already liberated. His mind is peaceful always. His passions are quieted. He experiences the boundless transcendental happiness from within by doing his duties for the pleasure of Krishna. And they are unaffected by material circumstances and situations and so on, or people. He or she is never shaken, even in the midst of great difficulties. Thus, he is freed from all miseries resulting from the soul's contact with matter. Because they start to go above the modes of material nature. Then Arjuna complains, after hearing this, Arjuna complains, however, the system of Ashtanga Yoga, Krishna, is too difficult to practice. But you are talking about it in great detail. I can see the result also will come. But it is very tough to practice. Because the mind is very restless, Krishna, you know that very well. Mind is restless. Arjuna defines the mind's properties. Restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. These are the words he uses. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, it seems to be more difficult than controlling the wind. I can control the wind, but I cannot control my mind, Krishna. Then how can I practice Ashtanga Yoga? Then Krishna replies, controlling the mind is indeed difficult, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. That is the secret Krishna is giving. Mind can be controlled by constantly practicing it and by developing detachment to the material attractions. Then Arjuna inquires about the fate of yogis who falls from yoga practice before attaining the perfection. What will happen to them, Krishna? They're following Ashtanga Yoga. At some point, they could not control the mind or senses. They fall down. What will happen to them? No, it's a very natural, logical question. Then Krishna replies that such an unsuccessful yogi, taking a future auspicious birth in a wealthy family or in a pious family or very wise family. This is the answer Krishna gave to Arjuna. By taking birth in those families, they have a natural attraction for the Supreme Lord, natural attraction for bhakti, and they just immediately resume their practice. And after many, many births of such practice, they attain perfection. This is Krishna's answer. Then Krishna concludes his account of this difficult yoga system by declaring that one who worships him faithfully is in fact the best of all yogis. So here this is the, I would say this is the point, this is the take home point. Krishna says, you don't need to do Ashtanga Yoga, Arjuna, practice Bhakti Yoga. That's what he's saying, that of all yogis, one who just performing his work and worships me with full faith, with devotion, he is the best of all yogis. So in conclusion, the yoga is the superior to austerities. Austerities means the fruitive activities and tapasya and all these things we do. Okay? And of all the paths of yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, hatha yoga, raja yoga, however you want to say it, bhakti yoga is declared to be the culmination, the highest form of yoga system. That is what Krishna will make it very clear at the end of 6th chapter. Then come to 7th chapter, knowledge of the Supreme. Now he introduced Bhakti Yoga very indirectly in the 6th chapter. So now he comes to 7th chapter, Krishna talks about the perfect yogi, who is Bhakti Yogi. He says that having identified the best yogi as one who serves and thinks of Krishna, now he started to explain how to attain such constant remembrance. That's what he explains in the 7th chapter. By hearing about Krishna, being in full Krishna conscious of him, the mind attached to Krishna, such a soul who truly knows him is very, very rare. That kind of a souls are very rare. So all of you, trying to understand Krishna, and we are repeating Krishna's words today, reciting the entire, we are doing Gita Parayana, which is a very rare source according to Krishna. Then he says, besides the earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego that comprise, Krishna says, my material energy. Then Krishna says, there is a spiritual energy. Everything we see is a combination of Krishna's material energy and spiritual energy in this world. What is spiritual energy we see in this world? Which includes Jiva. Jiva is marginal. So we are partly spiritual, partly material. So everything we see in this world is a combination of its material and spiritual energy of Krishna. So Krishna talks about that in the middle of the chapter. Then he says, as the originator and the dissolver of that which is manifest by these energies, no truth is superior to me. Krishna says that. You can see how he gradually brings Arjuna from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga to Bhakti Yoga, and he started to explain about his spiritual position, the supreme position. He says, everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. And Krishna is saying that I am the taste appreciated within water. He says, I am the fragrance of the earth, the intelligence of the intelligent, the prowess of the powerful, the strength of the strong. He is the active principle controlling the world. That is the point he was making. So that beautifully Krishna explains everything in the sense that Krishna is everything and controls everything, but still remains independent. And then he talks about the three modes of material nature are controlled by him. Krishna says, I control the three modes of material nature, and overcoming them is very difficult for unsurrendered soul. If you surrender to Krishna, then you can overcome the influence of the three modes that we experience in this world. Krishna talks about that. Then Krishna talks about surrender to the demigods. Krishna, what he says is Krishna as a super soul makes their faith steady. For example, if somebody surrendered to demigods and they do demigod worship, Krishna says, I make their faith steady when they desire to worship a particular demigod. Then says, Krishna also bestows the result of the worship through the demigods. Whatever the result comes from the demigods, I only supply that indirectly through them. So then he says that such worship sends those people to the planets of the demigod. But if you reach Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka, we will never take birth again. But if you reach the demigod planet, there's a possibility, not possibility, we will come down, because at the end, that is in the Brahmanda. Demigod planets are also material, so it will go through the destruction. So Krishna talks about that. Then Krishna talks about impersonalist. He says, impersonal do not understand the supreme nature of me. So they think that I am an imperishable, unborn, infallible light, Brahman. That's what they think. They think that Krishna has impersonal before and he has now assumed a form. That's how they think. And Krishna calls them, to such foolish people, he says, I will never manifest to them. That's the point he's making in that chapter. Then, of course, he's talking about living entities are born into delusion. They can become free. How? That those who are pious and intelligent, who aspire for liberation from material bondage, seek refuge in Krishna. He says that in devotional service, with determination, knowing Krishna to be the Supreme Lord, and they act in that understanding, they can come out of all kinds of delusion and they can attain liberation. So that is the point Krishna was making towards the end of the 7th chapter. Then he was telling those endeavoring for liberation, Sakama devotees, are called Brahman, as they know everything about transcendental activities, devotional service. So then he just talks about the Sakama devotees. Then he also talks about the pure devotees, and then that's how he concludes the chapter 7. Then he comes to chapter 8, because now we started talking about how to attain that Supreme Lord who is a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not being impersonalist, how to become impersonalist. So 8th chapter covers that. 8th chapter of Gita is almost exclusively concerned with the moment of death. I'll put it like that. The moment of the moment of the jivas passing from the material body. If you see at the beginning of the chapter, Arjuna asks Krishna 8 questions. He asked 8 questions. So I'm going to ask a question and answer also. So Arjuna asked, what is Brahman? Krishna said, living entity is Brahman, because soul is Brahman. Then he said, who is Adi Atma, the presiding deity of the body? Krishna answered, the eternal nature of the living entity, to be the servant of the Supreme Soul. Then he says, what is karma? Is karma fruitive or spiritual activity? Then Krishna said, the action that pertains to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma. Beautiful definition. The action that pertains to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma. Krishna answered that way. Then Arjuna asked, what is Adibhuta, the material manifestation? The Krishna said, the physical nature which is constantly changing is the nature of the Adibhuta. He explains that. Then Arjuna asked, who is Adi Deva? Does Adi Deva refer to the demigods or the universal form? The Lord says, the universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods. So that is the advice, answer he gave for Adi Deva question. Then 6th and 7th question is like, who is Adi Yagna, the Lord of sacrifices? Where whoever he is, where does he preside? Then Krishna himself is Adi Yagna. He resides in the hearts of all living entities. So that's the answer he gives to 6th and 7th question. Then the 8th question is, how can those engaged in devotional service know Krishna at the time of death? Krishna says, by remembering me at the time of death. So then Krishna elaborates on the answer to the last question till the end of the chapter. Krishna tells Arjuna that whoever leaves the body remembering me attains my abode. And he talks about the quality of one's consciousness at the time of death determines one's next destination. So he was giving that explanation. Then Krishna describes the arduous Ashtanga Yoga method of meditation on Krishna for the attainment of spiritual planets. It is not easy. Krishna then concludes that he is attained most easily by one who is unflinchingly devoted to him through Bhakti Yoga. So that's how he concludes the chapter. Then we come to the 9th chapter, the most confidential knowledge, because Krishna is revealing, step by step to Arjuna that Bhakti Yoga is the only way to go, and he was revealing himself more and more and more to Arjuna, so that Arjuna's faith in the Supreme Lord in Bhakti Yoga can increase. So that is the flow you can see. Then when you come to the most confidential knowledge, 9th chapter, the knowledge of devotional service is the most supreme and confidential knowledge. So Krishna makes that point in the beginning of the chapter. And why this Krishna is giving this most confidential knowledge to Arjuna? Krishna explains that, Arjuna, you are non-envious. You are not envious of me. So I'm imparting this knowledge to you. And also you are my dear friend. So it's non-envious and you are my friend means those who have no faith in the process, they cannot understand Krishna. That is the point Krishna is making here. Those who have no faith in the process remain in the cycle of birth and death and do not attain Krishna. So that point Krishna makes it very clear in the beginning of the 9th chapter. Krishna then explains that the whole cosmic creation rests within him. Yet although he is the source, maintainer and controller of the universe, so he remains transcendental and detached from it. So that is another point he was making in the 9th chapter. Then he talks about the fools who think Krishna is an ordinary human being possessing a temporary form, become atheist and are defeated in their endeavors of fruitive activities, liberation and culture of knowledge. Krishna makes that. The Mahatmas, then he talks about Mahatmas who take shelter of Krishna's divine nature, Daivim Prakritim, understand Krishna's transcendental form, position, and this worship Krishna, and they worship Krishna with great determination by chanting always his glories, offering obeisances, and they are called Mahatmas because they are great souls, according to Krishna. Then Krishna talks about lower than the Mahatmas or other classes of devotees who by their endeavors indirectly worship Krishna. So then he lists them. He says monist, who worship himself as one with the Supreme, and the worshipper of the demigods, who imagines and worships a demigod's form, and a worshipper of the material and universal form is the third one. So Krishna was just giving that list. Then Krishna describes the different types of worshippers. Worshippers of universal form accept Krishna is the sacrifice, the ritual, the syllable home, the Vedas, the universal father, the most dear friend, the sustainer, the goal, the death, the drought, the eat and rain, like that. Then the worshippers of demigods indirectly worship Krishna. How? Through following the Vedas, because the ultimate beneficiary is the Supreme Lord. However, not only is direct worship of Krishna is superior, but demigod worshippers are worshipping improperly. And that is the point also made in the 9th chapter. Then Krishna requests that one worship him with devotion, even using a leaf. You don't need to have a very elaborate worship. Using a leaf, fruit, a flower, or some water. Or one can offer Krishna the austerities and the charities they perform. Such offering will free one from all reactions to work. So you can see again, he's making that point. Do your work, do your offering, do your charity, whatever you do, just do it as an offering to me, just for my satisfaction. Then you will be free from all kinds of sinful reactions. So he's making the point again. One, regardless of his position, will go back to Krishna. So that's how the 9th chapter ends. So with that, I'm going to stop here. And over to you, Veena Mataji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You can hear me, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. That was a very excellent summary, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So devotees, with that, we will conclude the part 1 session today, and we will resume at 2 o'clock with chapter 10 and request devotees to join. Before that, I would like to make a quick announcement. We have launched a Bhagavad Gita quiz contest on our website. The deadline is tomorrow 3 p.m. Request devotees to take part in the quiz. With that, we will conclude the first session. Thank you everyone for joining. Hare Krishna. See you all at 2 o'clock.
Hare Krishna.